Namanje ishintshile imithetho la esikoleni.
Hello, Olifants Falcons back like umqolo baby.
Hambani Olifants, uthenzi.
Uthini kumina wena ngani?
Hayibo. Manje into engiyazi ukuthi sekunosathane. Kunosathane la esikoleni sethu.
Ibe ngalo.
Amanda!
Hawuxeke hitho. Waka wena. Unonyaka imatric dance ayikho. Leka ntwana dikleko uyaphansi phansi.
Asithi uwa.
Ukuthi usangifuna. Amuntu realize ne gore nto e khaya dira gona no. Pinta nyo dira gona no go nro senja future.
Hello everyone, welcome back to ASR, African Stories Realized. This is a full recap of Youngins Season 3. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Episode 1 picks up following the arrest of the Olifants Big Five as they face the consequences of starting the fire that caused TK's death. As their case began, the judge announced to the court that if found guilty, there was a possibility the Big Five would go straight to prison and not juvenile detention. Butle's father reassured her that he would support her and revealed that he had retained a lawyer who was confident about winning the case. Amo apologized to her aunt after she was forced to come to Joburg and support her niece. However, her aunt questioned what her plan was and reminded her that she left home because she wanted to be grown. Tumelo's father also arrived to support his son, who got on a group call with Butle, Amo, and Kaya. They reassured each other that they would get through this, but questioned where Mahlata was and why they couldn't get in touch with him. At Mahlata's place, he apologized to his mother, who had confiscated his phone, and encouraged him to leave the Big Five behind. But Mahlata insisted that they were his friends and he was the one responsible for the fire that took TK's life. However, Mahlata's mother reminded him that he was not well off like his friends and they wouldn't be able to serve his jail time if he was found guilty. Meanwhile, at Olifants Fontaine, the entire school discussed the fate of the Big Five, while Principal Ramathuba did his best to restore order, introducing new rules and threatening to expel anyone who disobeyed them. Palesa and Alex quickly got in trouble for dancing in the corridors and were sent to detention, where Palesa started flirting with Sefako. An angry Sefako then confronted Lesedi for tricking him, blaming him for getting his friends arrested and using him to do it. The episode ends in court with the judge revealing that the Big Five face charges of arson, defeating the ends of justice, and culpable homicide. Episode 2 picks up ahead of the Big Five's next court date at Mahlata's place, where his mother was giving him the silent treatment. He pleaded with her to support him, but his mother revealed that they couldn't even afford a lawyer or food, questioning what will happen to him when he goes to prison. Ultimately, she returned his phone to him and suggested that he sort out his own mess. At the Kunene homestead, Butle's father tried to force her to turn on her friends and testify against them. Butle was defiant, but her father insisted that for the sake of their family, she had to take the stand. The Big Five reunited briefly before court proceedings began, where Butle revealed that her father was forcing her to take the stand, and Tumelo revealing that he also had a lawyer. When the time came for Butle to testify, the prosecutor tore her apart on the stand after she denied being in the room when the fire started. It was followed by a damning testimony from Detective Kumalo. However, Butle's defense lawyer presented new evidence which caused some doubt over the state's case. After a tense day in court, the Big Five had a heated argument, with Mahlata confronting Butle for testifying, and each of the members revealing how much of a strain the case has been on their respective families. Kaya revealed that he was also considering taking the stand, but Amo suggested that they were playing right into the prosecutor's trap for them to tell different stories, with Mahlata starting to freak out over the fact that he doesn't have a lawyer like the others. Meanwhile at Olifants, Palesa continued flirting with Sefako as they bonded over being outcasts. Alex then asked Palesa what was going on between her and Sefako, insisting they had nothing in common, but Palesa just laughed it off. News then arrived that the magistrate had reached a verdict and the episode ends with Mahlatse on a call with Buhle, Amo and Tumelo, insisting that it's every man for himself. Episode 3 picks up on the day of the verdict, with Mahlatse's mother comforting him as they prepared for court. Buhle's father revealed that he was confident her testimony would keep her out of trouble, but Buhle couldn't help but worry about Mahlatse. Amo then sent the group a voice note encouraging them to stick together before they made their way to court. At the courthouse, the Big Five apologized to each other, insisting they were family as they reconciled and hoped for the best. As the judge prepared to read out the verdict, he summarized the case, insisting that while the fire may have been caused by a fault in Mahlatse's room, he was responsible for bringing the stove into the dorms, which was prohibited by the school. The Big Five was cleared of arson, but Mahlatse was found guilty for defeating the ends of justice, and all of them were found guilty for culpable homicide. However, the episode ends with relief for the Big Five after the judge sentenced them to a 5-year suspended sentence and 200 hours of community service, avoiding jail time. Episode 4 picks up at Mahlatse's place ahead of the Big Five's return to Olifants Fontaine. His mother advised him to not waste a second chance. She told him to focus on his future, put himself first, and stop prioritizing his friends. The Big Five returned to Olifants High, but things had drastically changed from the Olifants they knew, with even Tsepo warning Tumelo that he will get them in trouble for not following the rules. Ramathuba then welcomed the Big Five back, revealing that the only reason he didn't expel them was to avoid the bad publicity it might bring the school. He also instructed them to familiarize themselves with the new rules, insisting that they won't get any special treatment now that they're convicts. At assembly, Ramathuba made an example out of Buhle and stripped her of her head girl position. Buhle did not take it well, repeatedly clashing with the new head girl, Buseletu. Meanwhile, Tumelo and Amo discussed her entanglement with Mahlatse and Kai, revealing that she had chosen to be with Mahlatse, but she hadn't told him yet and didn't know how to break it to Kaya. Tumelo encouraged her to forget about Kaya and tell Mahlatse how she feels. Amo took Tumelo's advice and tried to tell Mahlatse that she had chosen him, but they were interrupted by the school secretary, who delivered a letter to Mahlatse. Upon reading the letter, Mahlatse started to worry and was no longer in the mood to hear what Amo had to say. Kaya and Sefako reunited in their room, with Sefako apologizing for giving Lesedi access to their room where the stove which started the Olifants fire was hidden. The two friends caught up, with Sefako revealing he had a new lady in his life, but decided not to reveal who she was yet. Tumelo then reunited with Sefako, expressing how much he missed him and wanted to catch up, but Sefako seemed distracted, revealing that he's too busy to hang out with him. After getting some encouragement from Buhle, Amo and Mahlatse, Tumelo decided to surprise Sefako in his dorm room, only to find him cuddled up with his new boo, Palesa. Tumelo confronted the couple, but the episode ends with him being forced to leave in embarrassment after Palesa made it clear to him that her and Sefako were an item. Episode 5 picked up with Tumelo venting to a distracted Mahlatse about Sefako and Palesa. He confronted Sefako about his relationship with Palesa, and despite Tumelo desperately asking for his love back, Sefako insisted that he wanted to see where things go with Palesa. However, Tumelo was not satisfied and went on to confront Palesa for stealing his man, with a fight breaking out between the two. Sefako and Buseleto broke up the fight, and Sefako made it clear to Tumelo in front of everyone that he's done with him and he's dating Palesa now. In class, Mahlatse continued to worry, searching for bursaries online after his scholarship was seemingly terminated. Amo tried to check up on him after class, but Mahlatse pushed him away, insisting he wanted space. Meanwhile, Buhle continued clashing with the new head girl after Buseleto ordered her to change her hairstyle. Buhle was defiant, but was ultimately served with her first warning letter by the new head girl. Buhle then suggested to the rest of the group that they plan a party, but the others were not interested as they wrestled with their personal issues. Mahlatse couldn't even eat as he silently suffered from the fallout of losing his scholarship. This left an opening for Kaya, who made his move on Amo, questioning if she still wanted him, and the episode ends with Amo finally accepting Kaya's advances as they embraced. Episode 6 picked up in the boys' dorms as Mahlatse woke up to the rejection from one of the bursaries he had recently applied to. The worried Mahlatse said a quiet prayer alone as he ran out of options. Meanwhile, Tumelo confronted Amo after seeing her loved up with Kaya. Amo insisted she had made a decision and revealed that Mahlatse didn't seem interested in her anymore. But Tumelo warned her that Kaya was a player. Amo and Kaya later met up in his room, where Amo suggested that they take things slow and watch a movie. Tumelo continued his pursuit of Sefako. He apologized for attacking Palesa, and the former lovers later caught up with each other at their meetup spot. During class, the school secretary delivered another letter to Mahlatse, informing him of the outstanding school fees that he owed. However, one of his classmates caught a glimpse of the letter and exposed Mahlatse in front of the class, making fun of him, with Tsepo joining in. Mahlatse offered to do schoolwork for some students, but quickly gave up and called his mother to inform her that he had lost his scholarship. The episode ends with Mahlatse's mother telling him to come back home, where he can enroll in a local school. Episode 7 picks up in the boys' dorms, with Kaya and Amo watching a movie together. The couple started making out, but Amo soon stopped Kaya from going too far. She reminded him that she wants to take things slow. Kaya suggested that they at least try something, but Amo revealed that she wanted to wait until she was married before sleeping with anyone. However, Kaya was becoming frustrated, with other girls beginning to catch his eye. Meanwhile, in their room, Tumelo questioned why Mahlatse looked so depressed, begging his friend to confide in him, but Mahlatse said nothing. Tumelo then went to the school field and tried to seduce Sefako, who soon had to leave because he had plans with Palesa. Tumelo tried his luck later in the day, but Palesa interrupted the couple and took Sefako away. Mahlatse had decided to stay in school, but was forced to resort to living off leftovers in the cafeteria. He delivered some schoolwork to a student who had agreed to pay him 100 rands. However, the student gave him a handful of coins and claimed he would only have the rest at the end of the month. Mahlatse began to panic, but after overhearing the students complain about how hard it was to get their hands on contraband, he came up with a plan. Mahlatse let his mother know that he wouldn't be coming home, and the episode ends with him in his room, making himself a homemade brew. Episode 8 picks up in the boys' dorms as Mahlatse tried to hide his new business venture from Tumelo. Once his first batch of homemade beer was ready, he offered Tsepo a bottle to sample the product. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, Palesa revealed to Amo and Alex that Sefako had chosen her over Tumelo, but Tumelo was relentless in the pursuit of his ex. He paid Sefako a visit, begging him to spend some time with him, but Sefako was on his way out to meet Palesa for a date. Tumelo revealed that he was struggling with cravings from his addiction and insisted that he needed Sefako's support. Sefako then cancelled his plans with Palesa and stayed in his room with Tumelo watching movies. Back in their room, Tumelo discovered Mahlatse's homemade brew and confronted him for already breaking the terms of his probation. Tumelo reported him to the rest of the group, and the Big Five confronted Mahlatse for risking his freedom, questioning why he was selling homemade beer in school. An angry Mahlatse revealed that he had no choice because he had lost his scholarship, and accused his friends of being judgmental snobs who only care about their own problems. Mahlatse then went back to his room, where Mazamba now arrived with Tsepo, who was praising his brew. The episode ends with them buying 2 bottles from Mahlatse, as he secured his first customers. Episode 9 picks up in the boys' dorms, where Tumelo warned Mahlatse about getting caught, as his clientele began to grow. Mahlatse assured Tumelo that he was being careful and would stop selling his brew once the school year was over, revealing that there's a possibility he would get a sponsorship the following year. Meanwhile, in their room, Kyle confided in Sefako about his frustration with Am, but Sefako insisted that it would help his friend build up some discipline. Kyle then tried to be romantic and brought Amo a rose and chocolates, but to his disappointment, she was more concerned about Mahlatse. She found Mahlatse and offered to help him find another solution to his sponsorship problem, but Mahlatse insisted that he could handle it himself, encouraging Amo to enjoy her relationship with Kaya and stop worrying about him. Amo then went to see Kaya at the school field, where the couple had a heated exchange, with Kaya revealing his frustration with Amo's refusal to sleep with him, questioning why she considered sleeping with Mahlatse and not him. Kaya insisted that if Amo wouldn't give him some, he would get some elsewhere, and the couple went their separate ways after seemingly breaking up. Meanwhile, Sefako was confronted by Palesa, who was not happy that he cancelled their date and was ready to leave him. He tried to explain that he was giving Tumelo some support, but that only made Palesa angrier. Sefako ultimately agreed to stop hanging out with Tumelo after Palesa confronted him in front of the cafeteria, demanding that he stay away from her man. However, Tumelo was relentless. He confronted Sefako in his room, revealing his envy for Sefako and Palesa's relationship. Sefako insisted that they couldn't be together because he had a girlfriend, but the former lovers ended up kissing as Sefako tried to comfort Tumelo. Mahlatse then went to Ramathuba's office, presenting him with 900 rands and some change, while he requested to pay his school fees in installments. However, Ramathuba was not impressed with Mahlatse's offering. He berated the young man for selling weed in school, burning down the dorms and getting a student killed. The episode ends with an angry Ramathuba declaring that Mahlatse doesn't belong in the school as he kicked him out of his office. Episode 10 picks up in the boys' dorms as Tumelo tried to comfort Mahlatse after Ramathuba rejected his attempt to pay school fees. Mahlatse refused to confide in Tumelo and insisted that he needed to face his issues alone. However, Tumelo revealed his concern to the rest of the Big Five, insisting that they need to try and help Mahlatse despite their reluctance. The group approached Mahlatse and offered to contribute some of their own money to help fund his fees. However, Mahlatse refused to be a charity case, rejecting the donations and once again insisting that he would face his problems alone. Back in his room, Mazambane and Tepo arrived to buy more homemade beer from Mahlatse. However, a tense negotiation ensued after Mahlatse revealed that he had increased his prices. He insisted that the students had to meet his demands because he was the only supplier in school. Tepo and Mazambane ultimately accepted to pay the increased price, but warned Mahlatse against getting too greedy. Tumelo and Sefako then spoke about their kiss, with Sefako insisting that it was a mistake and that he had to tell Palesa. However, Tumelo suggested that he should dump Palesa so they could be together. Tumelo and Palesa then had a heated exchange over their entanglement with Sefako, with Tumelo ultimately revealing to a shocked Palesa that him and Sefako shared a kiss. Meanwhile, Kaya confided in Sefako about his breakup with Amo, but Sefako suggested that he has two options: to either be patient and wait for Amo, or to get himself a side chick, but risk losing Amo. Kaya apologized to Amo, and the couple made up, but Amo made it clear that she still wanted to wait for marriage. The couple seemed to be going strong, but the episode ends with Kaya sleeping with a different girl in his room, swearing her to secrecy. Episode 11 picks up with Tumelo warning Mahlatse for being reckless after he spotted him selling to grade 8 students. He offered to call his dad to make a plan, but Mahlatse insisted that even if Tumelo's father sold a cow to help him pay for his fees, it would only be a short-term solution and wouldn't cover his outstanding amount for the remainder of the term. Palesa then confronted Sefako in class for kissing Tumelo, with Sefako later revealing to Kaya that he was conflicted and didn't know which one to choose. He then asked both of them to meet, where they immediately started arguing in front of him and demanded that he choose, but Sefako insisted that he wanted both of them. Amo finally came around and revealed to Kaya that she was ready to get more intimate and at least experiment with him. She came to his room after school, but just as the couple was getting started, Amo was forced to hide after one of the teachers knocked on Kaya's door and revealed he was there to search his room for alcohol. Meanwhile, Mahlatse bought himself some much-needed toiletries before calling his mother to inform her that he had a plan to stay at Olifants, so she shouldn't worry about him. Little did he know that Principal Ramathuba had found a bottle of his brew on the school premises and had begun a search for the alcohol. The principal arrived in Tumelo and Mahlatse's room and quickly found the evidence that Mahlatse was brewing alcohol in school. The episode ends with Ramathuba ordering Mahlatse to pack up his things and to meet him in his office, where he will call his mother to come and fetch him. Episode 12 picks up in Kaya's dorm, where he bribed the teacher who was searching his room, convincing him to look the other way while Amo hid under his bed. Kaya was excited to resume their intimate evening together until Amo confronted him with a used condom she had found under his bed. Kaya initially claimed that it belonged to Sefako, but he was forced to admit that it was his after Amo threatened to call Palesa and ask if she'd slept with Sefako. Kaya tried to apologize to Amo, but they were interrupted by Tumelo, who reported that Mahlatse was in Ramathuba's office after he was caught selling alcohol. Amo and Tumelo stayed behind worrying about Mahlatse, while Buse and Kaya attended career day in the hall. During career day, a former student, Gabelo, who excelled while at Olifants, shared his knowledge with the students. And after speaking to the students, it was revealed that Butle and Gabelo knew each other when he was still a student. Gabelo asked out Butle and convinced her to leave with him immediately during school. Meanwhile, Sefako was hard at work trying to convince Palesa to agree to a polyamorous relationship. And to her friend's surprise, she seemed to be coming around despite her dislike for Tumelo. However, Tumelo was too concerned about Mahlatse to even entertain Sefako's proposal. In Ramathuba's office, the principal questioned why such a bright student would resort to selling drugs and alcohol in school before expelling Mahlatse. Mahlatse broke down in front of the principal and made a passionate apology, explaining how bad things were at home, insisting he only sold contraband to help take care of his mother, who was unemployed, something he had been doing since he was 12. Ramathuba returned Mahlatse to his room, where he was to wait until his mother arrived to fetch him. However, the principal had a change of heart, and the episode ends with him revealing that Mahlatse can stay in Olifants and that he will help him get a new scholarship. Episode 13 picks up at Kabelo's place, where him and Butle spent the night together. The following morning, Butle woke up late for school, but Kabelo advised her to bunk again, even giving her his bank card so she could go on a shopping spree. Butle decided to stay, even planning for Kabelo to call the school pretending to be her uncle to explain her absence. She went on a shopping spree before Kabelo took her out on an expensive date. In the boys' dorms, Ramathuba brought Masata a new school uniform. Masata then revealed to a surprise Tumelo that he would no longer be leaving Olifants, and that Principal Ramathuba had also promised to help him get a new scholarship. After cheating on Amo, Kaya desperately tried to apologize to her, but she wasn't interested. He asked Sefako to speak with Amo on his behalf, and despite his reluctance, Sefako approached Amo and encouraged her to forgive his friend. However, Amo made it clear to Sefako that she didn't want to get back with Kai. Meanwhile, Tumelo and Palisa finally accepted Sefako's proposal for a polyamorous relationship. Alex confronted Palisa for agreeing to be part of the throuple, questioning why she'd agreed to share a man she's not even that into, but Palisa insisted that she does love Sefako. Later in Sefako's room, Palisa tried to tell him that she wasn't comfortable with their arrangement, but the couple was interrupted by Tumelo, who claimed he wanted to borrow some soap from Sefako, openly flirting with him in front of Palisa before leaving. The episode ends with a jealous Palisa insisting to Sefako that she still wants to be part of the entanglement. In episode 14, all eyes were on Butle when Kabelo dropped her off at school. He bribed the security guard to keep his mouth shut before Butle returned to her room, where she showed Amo the gifts that Kabelo had showered her with, even giving one of the outfits to Amo. In the boys' dorms, Kaya asked Sefako if he had managed to speak to Amo about forgiving him, but Sefako revealed that she rejected his efforts and had no desire to forgive Kaya. Later in the cafeteria, Kaya made a passionate apology to Amo in front of everyone, but she silently walked out as the room broke out in laughter. Kaya tried once again to apologize to Amo, even getting down on his knees to beg for her forgiveness, but Amo insisted that their relationship was over. Meanwhile, Tumelo was becoming increasingly jealous with Palisa hogging most of Sefako's time and attention. Sefako continued to prioritize Palisa over Tumelo, so to interrupt their plans, Tumelo reported the couple to a teacher, and the episode ends with the teacher interrupting Sefako and Palisa, who were getting intimate in his room. Episode 15 picks up in Ramathuba's office with the principal giving Sefako a final warning after he was found in his room with Palisa. Amo tried to catch Butle up on the latest school gossip, but she was nursing a hangover after spending another night with Kabelo. Kabelo later sent flowers to Butle in school, and in class, she revealed to Ramathuba that she hadn't done the assignment, disrespecting the principal in front of the other students before walking out of the classroom. Meanwhile, Tumelo confided in Masata about his entanglement with Sefako and Palisa, but Masata was over the drama, insisting that Sefako did not love Tumelo the way he deserved to be loved. Palisa, who was serving detention, suspected that Tumelo was the one who reported her and Sefako, but Alex advised her to have more self-respect, insisting that she doesn't deserve to be treated like a third wheel by Sefako, and she shouldn't settle for sharing a man. Palisa confronted Sefako, expressing her love for him but revealing that she can't continue sharing him with Tumelo, encouraging him to make a decision. Sefako later met up with Tumelo to reveal that he was breaking up with him and that he had chosen to be with Palisa. Tumelo took it well, claiming that he was also about to break up with him and finally put an end to their love story. The couple shared a hug before going their separate ways. Kaya and Amo also parted amicably, with Kaya insisting that he will respect Amo's desire to break up and move on from him. The couple hugged before they were interrupted by Ramathuba, who was on a warpath. The episode ends during assembly with the principal announcing that relationships and romance had been banned from Olifants High. Episode 16 picks up with Tumelo and Mahlata getting ready for school. Mahlata advised Tumelo not to wear jewelry and accessories, which were against Ramathuba's new laws, but Tumelo was defiant and questioned where Mahlata's loyalty lied, with his friends or with Principal Ramathuba. Mahlata then warned Ramathuba that his new regulations may force the students to rebel, but Ramathuba insisted that he had to lay down the law. A rebellion was indeed brewing as students gathered to declare that they'll stand up against the principal and his new rules. The head girl, Puseletsu, then confronted some of the students, including Tumelo, Tsepo, and Mazambane, for breaking the new dress code. They refused to remove their jewelry and accessories, so she reported them to Ramathuba, and they were all summoned to the principal's office, where he stripped them of all their jewelry and accessories. In class, Ramathuba handed out test papers and humiliated Kaya for getting the lowest mark. The principal ordered Kaya to stay behind after class, where he revealed to Kaya that Mahlata would tutor him maths. Kaya rejected Mahlatsa's help, and after a heated exchange, Mahlatsa warned Kaya that he would fail, but Kaya fired back, suggesting that he doesn't care because Amo will be by his side. Ramathuba clashed with Butle again after he caught the student on her phone in class. Butle disrespected the principal and once again walked out of the classroom. She was later confronted by Puseleto, the new head girl, who insisted that she take off the necklace that Kabelo bought her. Butle refused, but Ramathuba arrived shortly after and ordered her to take it off. She once again refused, and the episode ends with the fed-up Ramathuba suspending Butle from school. Episode 17 picks up with Butle packing her things as she revealed to Amo that she was done with Olifants and going to Kabelo's place. Amo desperately tried to stop her, reminding Butle that she barely knows Kabelo, but Butle insisted that she would take care of her before leaving with her things. Amo reported to the rest of the Big Five that Butle had left the school to shack up with her new boyfriend. Tumelo insisted that it wasn't fair that Butle got suspended, but Mahlatsa defended the decision, suggesting that as a former head girl, Butle should know better and reminding the group that she had been warned. Amo later questioned why Mahlatsa was acting weird, begging him not to push her away, but a cold Mahlatsa rejected her and suggested that she focus on Kaya, who was struggling with matric. At Kabelo's place, Butle vented about Ramathuba, even claiming that the new principal was worse than Mtembu. Kabelo asked Butle to move in with him, and she ultimately decided to drop out of school and pursue her podcast career, with Kabelo promising to support her. Sefako then spoke to Ramathuba on behalf of the students, requesting that he take it easy on them, but the principal was not having it, berating Sefako for losing focus before insisting that the rules are there to stay and the students must follow them. Ramathuba's power trip continued as he conducted a random bag search on Kaya and Sefako in the boys' dorms. The friends returned to their room where they agreed that Ramathuba had gone too far, and the episode ends with them planning a party in protest of the principal's rules. In episode 18, Kaya and Sefako continued with their plans for the party, inviting the students and organizing alcohol for the occasion. Tumelo then confronted Mahlatsa for avoiding him, but Mahlatsa reminded him that he couldn't afford to stand with them against the principal, accusing his friend of being ungrateful, while a disappointed Amo watched on. Ramathuba then summoned Mahlatsa to his office and revealed that he can't trust Sefako, before requesting that he keep an eye on the students, ordering Mahlatsa to report any suspicious activity. And it just so happened that after leaving the office, Mahlatsa witnessed the students having a party, drinking alcohol and listening to music in the dorms. Meanwhile, Butle was forced to return to school because Kabelo claimed he had a work trip. Butle was reluctant to return to school or home, revealing that her mother had even reported her missing to the police. Her friends questioned where she had been, and Butle revealed that she was staying with a man and was done with Olifants. She later called Kabelo, begging him to come pick her up, but Kabelo insisted that he was busy at work, despite Butle hearing noise in the background. She was then confronted by Principal Ramathuba, who informed her that her parents had been looking for her before ordering her to leave the premises. Butle insisted that she was no longer a student at Olifants and had only returned to get her things. Back in her room, Butle got on social media, and the episode ends with her losing her mind after seeing pictures of Kabelo with another woman. Episode 19 picks up following the students' party. Amo snuck back into her room while Kaya and Sefako discussed the good time they had, later putting plans in motion to follow it up with an even bigger party. However, Mahlatsa revealed to Tumelo that he would be forced to report them to Principal Ramathuba, but Tumelo begged him not to expose them. And later in Ramathuba's office, Mahlatsa resisted reporting the students' party to the principal. However, Mahlatsa was not happy to find out that Amo had also been drinking at the party. He then started feeling guilty after Ramathuba presented him with a new scholarship from a company that promised to sponsor Mahlatsa's education and give him a job once he'd completed university. Meanwhile, a heartbroken Butle was still reeling after finding out that her boyfriend, Kabelo, was already married. Too proud to confide in her friends, Butle contacted Kabelo's wife and left her a chilling voice note exposing their affair. Kabelo then tried to contact Butle, but she insisted that he must come and apologize to her in person. An angry Kabelo arrived at Olifants and confronted Butle for contacting his wife. The couple had a heated exchange, and the episode ends with Kabelo returning Butle's things before telling her to never contact him or his wife again. Episode 20 picks up with Mahlatsa calling his mother to inform her that he had received a new scholarship and that he had a job waiting for him when he finished university. Meanwhile, Kaya had posted a viral video on social media of a prank the students played on Ramathuba, sticking a sign written "stupid" on the principal's back. Mahlatsa confronted Kaya for disrespecting Ramathuba and asked him to delete the video. Kaya refused as they got into a heated argument that would have turned violent if not for Sefako intervening. Kaya then gave Tumelo an ultimatum to choose between Mahlatse and them, but Tumelo insisted that Mahlatse was his friend and would never snitch on them despite Kaya's warning. Mahlatse also warned Tumelo about hanging out with Kaya, threatening to snitch if his best friend doesn't stop associating with him. Meanwhile, a heartbroken Butle confided in Amo after Kabelo dumped her. Amo and Palisa comforted the former head girl before she cleaned herself up and marched to the principal's office, where she threw herself at the mercy of Ramathuba, apologizing for her recent behavior before begging the principal to let her come back to Olifants. However, Ramathuba insisted that before he makes any decision, Butle must first contact her parents, who had been worried not knowing her whereabouts. Butle's father arrived and berated her for bringing shame to their family and making them worry. She gave a passionate apology and begged her father to fix things with Ramathuba so she could return to school. Butle's father apologized to Ramathuba for his daughter's behavior, expressing his disappointment before asking the principal to give Butle a second chance. The episode ends during assembly, where Butle was forced to apologize in front of the entire school, despite Kaya's objection. Episode 21 picks up with a sequence of humiliation for Butle, as the students gave her a cold welcome back to Olifants. Buseleto made fun of the former head girl for being played by an older guy. Butle then retreated to her room, where she revealed to Amo that she had lost her status in Olifants and that she didn't want to be there anymore, despite Amo's encouragement. Kaya later intercepted her in the corridor and encouraged her to regain her confidence, even asking her to join their resistance against Ramathuba, as the former couple spent some quality time together. In the boys' dorms, Mahlatse confronted Tumelo for making a video encouraging his peers to rise up against Ramathuba. Mahlatse then confronted his friend again after he posted the video, demanding that Tumelo take it down. However, Tumelo was defiant, refusing to delete the video and once again questioning whose side Mahlatse was on. Amo confronted Mahlatse for siding with Ramathuba, revealing that her and Kaya had broken up. Mahlatse insisted that he wasn't siding with Ramathuba. However, after class, Mahlatse did the unthinkable and reported Tumelo to Ramathuba, showing him the video that his friend had posted on social media. Meanwhile, the students held a rally with Kaya leading the dissent against Ramathuba. After the rally, Kaya received some praise from his friends for his charisma and passion during his speech, but they were interrupted by Ramathuba, accompanied by Mahlatse and Puselet. The principal attacked Tumelo, grabbing him by the collar before ordering Mahlatse to take his phone away. The episode ends with Ramathuba declaring that all phones will be confiscated as he banned them from the school. Episode 22 picks up with the fallout of Ramathuba banning phones from the school. In the girls' dorms, Amo and Butle went into meltdown over the new rule, even likening Ramathuba's Olifants to North Korea. In the boys' dorms, Sefako questioned why Mahlatse would betray his best friend, with Kaya insisting that Mahlatse is a coward who wouldn't even defend the girl he claims to love. In their room, Tumelo confronted Mahlatse for siding with Ramathuba, but Mahlatse defended his actions, and to Tumelo's disappointment, he revealed that he was the one that snitched on him. Mahlatse was then confronted by Kaya for betraying them, with the two boys almost coming to blows before they were kept apart by other boys in the dorm. In class, the students complained to Pearl about the banning of phones in Olifants. However, Ramathuba silenced them and reiterated his commitment to keeping phones out of school. After class, Amo confronted Mahlatse, questioning why he had changed, but Mahlatse insisted that change is good and encouraged Amo to embrace it as the former couple drifted apart. Puseleto then checked on Mahlatse, who was looking visibly lonely. She offered him her support and friendship as Ramathuba's two enforcers started having each other's backs. Mahlatse later stood up for Puselet when a group of boys refused to disperse when she asked them to. Meanwhile, the students' resistance continued, with Kaya insisting he had a plan and Butle volunteering to help as the former couple got closer. The students gathered for another rally, which was interrupted by Mahlatse. However, their plans were already in motion. Kaya and some other boys put a rat amongst Ramathuba's things, and the episode ends with it scaring the principal, while the students laughed about it. Episode 23 picks up in the girls' dorms, with Amo and Butle laughing about the students' latest prank on Ramathuba. Meanwhile, in their room, Tumelo extended an olive branch to Mahlatse, with the friends agreeing to keep school politics out of their relationship. Mahlatse then revealed that Ramathuba had secured him a life-changing scholarship, and Tumelo was happy for him, but they were interrupted by Kaya, who took Tumelo away so they could continue plotting against Ramathuba. In class, the pranks continued when Ramathuba found a used condom on his desk. He confronted the students and ultimately gave them all detention, before ordering Mahlatse to find out who's behind the plan to humiliate him. The students were already planning their next act of defiance, a party with an anti-Ramathuba theme. The cars brought Palisa and Tumelo together as they joked about their recent entanglement, with Palisa even giving Tumelo credit for being on the front line of the resistance. However, Mahlatse reported Kaya for being the mastermind behind Ramathuba's humiliation. The principal gave Kaya a final warning, after which Kaya confronted Mahlatse in front of everyone, accusing him of snitching on him. Back in their room, a disappointed Tumelo confronted Mahlatse for snitching on Kaya, and the episode ends with Tumelo terminating their friendship. Episode 24 picks up with Mahlatse suffering from the fallout of snitching on Kaya. Tumelo and the others gave him a cold shoulder, with many students refusing to sit with him in the dining hall. Mahlatse then reached out to Amo, questioning if she hates him. Amo insisted that she didn't hate Mahlatse, but admitted that she did not like that he had changed and was siding with the enemy. However, Mahlatse insisted that change was good, and revealed that he was trying to atone for breaking the rules in the past, which led to TK's death, even warning her that their lawlessness may end up getting another student killed. Meanwhile, the students made plans for another party. They planned some alcohol before meeting up to drink and dance the night away. However, Mazambane got sick. The episode ends with him collapsing as his peers desperately try to wake him up. Episode 25 picks up with the students panicking after Mazambane collapsed during their party, forcing them to abandon it. Kaya and Sefako took him back to their room where they desperately tried to revive him. Kaya was eventually able to wake him up, but meanwhile in their room, Amo told Buhle that Mahlatse was right when he warned her that their recent behavior would end up with someone else getting hurt. The next morning, Ramathuba and Mahlatse discovered the aftermath of the students' party, which was held in one of the classrooms. Despite seeing the humor in the party, Mahlatse tried to warn Tumelo to stop his reckless behavior, but Tumelo rejected his friend's advice. Ramathuba called the matron, the security guard, and one other teacher into his office and berated them for letting the students have a party on their watch, with Ramathuba ultimately suspending the security guard, Batista. An angry Batista then confronted Sefako for getting him suspended, threatening to expose him for throwing the party if he doesn't get his suspension lifted. However, despite Sefako feeling guilty, Kaya insisted that they had to lay low and would compensate Batista when he returned from his suspension. Pearl then confronted Butle about her marks, insisting that she needs to pull up her socks and focus on passing matric instead of hanging with the wrong crowds. At assembly, Ramathuba singled out some learners who he insisted were responsible for causing the mess in the classroom where the students' party was held. The episode ends with Ramathuba expelling the students in front of everyone as he warned them about their future conduct. Episode 26 picks up with Principal Ramathuba implementing even more regulations, declaring that school would now start at 7 a.m. and that the students would be forced to attend on Saturdays and Sundays. The worried students turned to Kaya for a solution, but their ringleader had no answers. Meanwhile, in Ramathuba's office, the principal confronted Sefako for only acting like a head boy when it suited him, even asking him to step down from the position. Ramathuba then passed some of Sefako's open day responsibilities to Mahlatse. Amo approached Mahlatse, revealing that she agreed with him about the students needing order, but she wasn't happy with Ramathuba's authoritative style. Mahlatse implored her to change her ways, suggesting that Amo had been corrupted by the school. Amo later confided in Mahlatse, revealing that she wanted things to go back to how they were before the fire, hinting that she wants to get back with him. However, the brainwashed Mahlatse missed all the hints, with the couple being interrupted by Puseletso, who took Mahlatse away for open day preparations, where potential learners and their parents will be visiting the school. The couple bonded during their preparations, with Puseletso revealing that her father is a politician. Meanwhile, Pearl once again confronted Butle for losing her way, encouraging her to block out distractions and focus on her future. Butle then confided in Pearl, revealing that she didn't want to end up depending on a man and trapped in an unfaithful marriage like her mother. Pearl consoled Butle and told her that she was proud of her taking control of her life. Meanwhile, the students began to turn on Kaya, and with him quickly losing support and falling behind his classmates with his schoolwork, he had to come up with something. The episode ends with Kaya revealing to Tsepo and Mazambane that he has something sinister planned for open day. Episode 27 picks up with Mahlatse and Puseletso flirting after she questioned the nature of his relationship with Amo. As open day began, Ramathuba left one of the other teachers in charge of his class, giving Kaya an opportunity to slip out and put their plan in motion. Amo then revealed to her friends that she wanted to give up on the resistance, but Alex and Palisa accused her of turning her back on the cause because she wanted to get back with Mahlatse. Amo then tried to convince Kaya to abandon his cause and focus on passing matric. However, Kaya revealed that he never really cared about school and would continue his fight against Ramathuba's oppression. In the girls' dorms, Balisa asked Butle for some tampons, which made her come to the realization that her period was late. Butle dismissed it as a result of stress, but she was visibly concerned that she might be pregnant. Meanwhile, Mahlatsa and Buseleto welcomed the potential students and their parents. Open day seemed to be going well as Mahlatsa delivered his speech to their guests before introducing Principal Ramathuba. However, the open day ceremony was interrupted by Kaya, Mazambane, and Tepo, who spoke out against the principal, with Tepo revealing how they were being treated like prisoners and advising the parents to enroll their children in other schools. The parents left the hall as Olifants' open day came to an abrupt end. Outside, the students celebrated with Tepo after he exposed the principal's strict ways. However, an angry Ramathuba came after him, and the episode ends with the principal beating Tepo with a stick in front of everyone, leaving the wounded student covered in his own blood. Episode 28 picks up following Ramathuba's ruthless assault on Tepo. A worried Kaya, Dumelo, and Mazambane discuss Ramathuba, with Kaya insisting that he's gone too far and has to go. In the boys' dorms, Sefako told Kaya that he didn't want any part of the resistance after what happened to his cousin. Meanwhile, in their room, Amwe expressed the same concern about their principal to Butle, but she was visibly distracted, forcing Amo to question if she was okay. But Butle insisted that she was just preoccupied with her studies. Amo then confronted Mahlatsa about Ramathuba's actions, but he avoided the matter before meeting with the principal in his office, where he apologized for his actions and tried to explain himself to Mahlatsa. However, he made sure to tell the principal that his actions were wrong before going on to argue with Buselezo about Ramathuba's actions as she defended the principal. Kaya then encouraged Tepo to speak out and report the assault to his parents. Shortly after, it was revealed that parents and the student governing body would be coming to Olifants for an emergency meeting. Kaya, accompanied by some of the students, gate-crashed the meeting and revealed how Ramathuba had oppressed them. However, the parents, led by Tepo's mom and Kaya's father, supported Ramathuba, insisting that his methods were working. Meanwhile, Butle asked Mahlatsa for a permission slip, but he refused. She then asked Dumelo to get himself a permission slip before sending him to go and buy her a pregnancy test. Dumelo returned and waited outside the girls' bathroom for Butle as she took the test. The episode ends with Butle breaking into tears as she checks the results of her pregnancy test. Episode 29 picks up with Dumelo questioning what the results of Butle's pregnancy test were. However, Butle insisted that the results came back negative and she was in the clear. Dumelo later asked Butle again if she was pregnant, but she denied it before lashing out at her friend. Kaya then questioned why Butle had been distant lately and hadn't been getting involved with the cause. However, Butle revealed that she supported him but had a lot going on currently. Kaya then called a meeting with the students to try and rally their support against Ramathuba one more time, but they were reluctant to rebel after the principal's assault on Tepo, even suggesting that he brought it upon himself. At assembly, Tepo made a heartbreaking apology in front of the entire school, which angered both Kaya and Sefako. But Sefako once again reiterated that for the sake of his cousin and family, he didn't want to continue with Kaya's resistance. In the cafeteria, Tepo carved out a lonely figure where Amwe and her friends joined him, insisting that Ramathuba was wrong and that Tepo was a hero for standing up to him. However, Tepo rejected their efforts of consolation. Mahlatsa then got to know Puseleto better as she revealed that her parents had been married for over 25 years and shared what she wanted for her future, with Mahlatsa visibly impressed. Kaya then consoled Tepo, crying on the steps after he revealed the pain he felt when Ramathuba assaulted him in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Dumelo asked Butle for a third time if she was pregnant before she finally admitted it, revealing to her friend that she didn't know what to do as he tried to console her. Dumelo later questioned who the father of the baby is, with Butle revealing that it's Kabelo and that they never use protection, instead using morning afters as contraceptive. The episode ends with Butle breaking down at the thought of not going to university and having to raise a baby at a young age as Dumelo tries to comfort her. Episode 30 picks up with Kaya and Amo discussing Ramathuba's assault on Tepo as she questioned how he was holding up. Kaya revealed that Tepo was not in a good shape and needed their support, insisting that they'll deal with Ramathuba once they've helped Tepo get back to his old self. Kaya continued hanging with Tepo and tried to help him rebuild his confidence, sharing that his father had beaten him worse in the past, but he survived. Amo then tried to get through to Mahlatsa, once again confronting him about the principal's assault on Tepo. However, Mahlatse defended the principal's actions, insisting that the students forced his hand. Amo went back to Kaya and the former couple bonded over their fight against oppression. Meanwhile, Mahlatse and Puseletso continued flirting, with Mahlatse asking if she had a boyfriend. And after school, they exchanged love letters before sharing a kiss. Mahlatse then insisted that he wanted to give Puseletso the life she wanted, as the couple went from friends to lovers. In the cafeteria, Tumelo questioned why Butle wasn't eating, with her revealing that she was stressed about the pregnancy. Butle got irritated with Tumelo and once again lashed out, claiming that she didn't want his advice. However, Tumelo later came back, insisting that he refused to abandon his friend in her time of need. They then discussed their options, with Butle insisting that she couldn't tell her parents. Butle then decided to call Kabelo and tell him about her pregnancy, but the episode ends with him insisting that he wants nothing to do with her and the baby. Episode 37 picks up in the boys' dorms, where Tumelo revealed to Mahlatse that he was happy Butle decided to keep the baby, as they shared in the excitement of becoming uncles. The positivity continued into breakfast, with the group bonding over the pending arrival of Butle's baby. However, in the principal's office, Ramathuba confronted Mahlatse about his recent behavior and questioned if there was anything to report about the students. Mahlatse assured him that all was well, but the principal did not look convinced. Mahlatse then began to panic as he revealed to Tumelo that Ramathuba was onto them, but Tumelo insisted that Butle's pregnancy was a well-kept secret. Meanwhile, Sefako looked disinterested in his relationship with Palesa and was more interested with spending time with Tumelo, who was too busy to make time for his ex. Back in their room, Sefako confided in Kaya, revealing that he still had feelings for Tumelo and wanted to get back with him. In the girls' dorms, Amo encouraged the reluctant Butle to tell her parents about the pregnancy. However, they were interrupted by the matron, who ordered Butle to pack her bags and make her way to the office. At the principal's office, she found her father waiting, and Ramathuba wasted no time revealing that she was pregnant. The episode ends with Butle's father ordering her to pack her things because her time at Olifants is over. Episode 38 picks up with Butle begging her father to let her stay in school and finish matric, but Butle's father insisted he couldn't trust her to make decisions for herself, as he dressed her down in front of her schoolmates. Back in her room, he continued berating her as he helped her pack, but Butle stood up for herself and the baby, begging her father to let her make things right. Butle reiterated her desire to finish matric and go to university, and in a surprising turn of events, the good pastor agreed to help Butle raise her baby while she pursued her studies. However, he demanded that Butle give him the contact details to the baby's father. Meanwhile, Sefako was eager to spend time with Tumelo, who was too concerned about Butle to notice. Mahlatse then confronted Puseletso for revealing Butle's secret before confessing to his friends that it was his girlfriend who snitched. Tumelo then decided to give Puseletso some advice about Mahlatse and their friendship, revealing that they go way back and that Mahlatse has always been the one to keep them grounded. A furious Kabelo then confronted Butle for giving up his details to her father, but Kaya and the rest of the gents stepped in to protect her, threatening to beat up the disrespectful Kabelo. Ramathuba then arrived, questioning why Butle was still on the premises, insisting that he wanted her gone. However, Butle refused, informing the principal that she will finish her matric at Olifants, whether he likes it or not. Ramathuba was still determined to remove her, even threatening to call security, until Puseletso stepped in, firing back at the principal with regulations that forbade him from expelling a pregnant student. Ramathuba was defiant, but the students stood united against the principal, and the episode ends with them walking away in defeat as the students celebrated. Episode 39 picks up in the cafeteria, where the Big Five continued to celebrate their recent victory over the principal, even inviting Puseletso to sit with them before thanking her for helping them stand against Ramathuba. Puseletso continued hanging with the Big Five as they caught her up on all the adventures they had been through. Butle then revealed that Kabelo and his family had been forced to accept the baby, and despite her parents' disappointment, she shared that her mother was excited to be a grandmother. Sefako then met up with Tumelo, revealing that he missed him, suggesting that he's over Palesa and wants to get back together with his ex. Meanwhile, Ramathuba confronted Mahlatse for turning his back on him, but Mahlatse defended his actions, insisting that the principal was wrong. However, Ramathuba threatened Mahlatse, suggesting that the scholarship he helped him get might be in jeopardy. Butle then thanked Kaya for supporting her, but Kaya insisted that he would still be there for her, revealing that he wants to drop out of school and help her raise the baby. However, Butle insisted that he didn't have to do that for her and encouraged him to finish school. Mahlatse then apologized to Kaya for giving them a hard time this term as they officially buried the hatchet. Kaya then asked Mahlatse to help him catch up with his schoolwork so he could be ready to write matric. A focused Kaya went to Ramathuba and submitted some of his outstanding assignments, revealing to the principal that he's eager to finish matric and leave Olifants. Despite being impressed by the work he submitted, Ramathuba revealed to a confused Kaya that it was too late. The principal then addressed all the grade 12 students in the hall, announcing that in an effort to maintain the school's 100% matric pass rate, some learners would be forced to repeat grade 11. The episode ends with the principal revealing that Kaya is one of those students. Episode 40 picks up with the Big Five trying to console Kaya after it was announced that he would have to repeat grade 11. However, Kaya was in denial and refused to accept the principal's decision. He confronted Ramathuba in his office, insisting that his parents paid a lot of money for him to attend the school, as he declared that he would not be repeating grade 11. Ramathuba insisted that the decision was already made, as a desperate Kaya and the other students forced to repeat grade 11 began to panic. In the cafeteria, Tsepo of all people made fun of Kaya for repeating, but the Big Five stood up for their friend and defended Kaya, who was starting to feel left out. Amo then tried to cheer him up, encouraging him to look at it as a clean slate and use it as an opportunity to come back stronger. But Kaya was still adamant that he wasn't going to repeat grade 11. Meanwhile, Palesa was in a relationship with a distant Sefako who couldn't stop thinking about Tumelo. He later came clean to Palesa, revealing that he couldn't go out with her anymore because he still had feelings for Tumelo. A disappointed Palesa did not hold back, accusing Sefako of using her and insisting he was no better than Banele, who took advantage of her last season. Sefako wasted no time meeting up with Tumelo and presented him with a letter as he asked for his love back. However, Tumelo rejected him, insisting they should stop trying to force their relationship. Back in class, Kaya interrupted his former matric classmates before Ramathuba reminded him that he was no longer welcome in the grade 12 class. Kaya was once again defiant until Ramathuba revealed that he had already reported the matter to his parents. Not long after, Kaya's parents arrived for a meeting in the principal's office where Ramathuba explained that Kaya had to repeat because he had no chance of passing matric and that no tertiary school would accept his marks as they are. Kaya tried to argue his case, but his father supported the principal's decision and gave his son an ultimatum. The episode ends with Freddy insisting that if Kaya doesn't repeat grade 11, he would have to move out of his house. Episode 41 picks up in the boys' dorms with an emotional Kaya packing up his stuff as Sefako tried to stop him. Kaya revealed his frustration with his father and Ramathuba as he once again insisted that he won't repeat grade 11, breaking down in Sefako's arms as his friend tried to console him. Kaya then announced to his friends that he was still determined to leave, but the Big Five encouraged him to stick it out and stay in school, reminding him of all the good he's done in Olifants while promising to support him. Meanwhile, in Ramathuba's office, Puseletso tried to make an argument for Kaya and the other students being forced to repeat grade 11, insisting that they deserved a fair assessment before the decision was made. However, the principal informed her that all the students' parents were in agreement and threatened Puseletso's position as head girl. Sefako then made another attempt to get back with Tumelo, revealing that he broke up with Palesa, but Tumelo insisted that he was at peace and had no desire to get back with his ex. A desperate Sefako then went to Mahlatse and asked him to help him get back together with Tumelo, but Mahlatse refused, reminding Sefako how much pain he had put his friend through. Tumelo later confirmed to an elated Mahlatse that he was done with Sefako and that he had no interest in getting back with him. Amo then tried to reassure Kaya, who had decided to stay ahead of his first grade 11 lesson. Kaya's return to grade 11 was met with laughter and ridicule, despite Pearl defending the former matric student. After class, Kaya's confidence was low, but Amo once again tried to encourage him. The episode ends with her kissing Kaya and insisting that she was there for him. Episode 42 picks up in the boys' dorms with Sefako once again begging Mahlatse to help him win Tumelo's love back. But Mahlatse insisted that Sefako was wasting his time and encouraged him to focus on himself. Butle then asked Tumelo what was going on between him and Sefako, then advised him to do what made him happy. Mahlatse later caught Tumelo staring at Sefako from afar, suggesting that he was having a change of heart. Sefako then confided in Kaya, revealing how bad he wanted to get back with Tumelo, and his friend encouraged him to go after him if that was the case. Sefako made another attempt to talk to Tumelo, but they were interrupted by Palesa and Alex, who humiliated Sefako in front of the other students, with Palesa even complimenting Tumelo for rejecting Sefako. Meanwhile, things were awkward between Amo and Kaya after their kiss. but Amo suggested that they get back together since Kaya will be at the school for another year. The couple reconciled. However, on the other side of the school, Mahlatse confessed to Tumelo that if he had a chance to get back together with Amo, he would take it, even referring to her as his first love. With the matric dance approaching, the students were determined to fight for Kaya's right to attend with his former classmates. Butle, Sefako, and Puseleto went to Ramathuba's office and made a passionate plea for Kaya to join them at the matric dance. However, the principal was not amused, and the episode ends with him savagely rejecting their request, as he suggested that they wouldn't be getting a prom. Episode 43 picks up at assembly, where Ramathuba announced to the rest of the school that the matric dance would be cancelled. The students reacted with outrage, and after assembly, Butle expressed her frustration with Ramathuba's decision. Tumelo then suggested that they plan their own matric dance, but they would need a teacher they trusted to help them pull it off. Amo and Butle went to Pearl, explaining that they need her help to plan a matric dance. Initially, Pearl refused to get involved because she was worried about risking her job. However, she later changed her mind and agreed to help the students, but with one rule in place: no alcohol allowed. Pearl then revealed that they didn't have much time because Ramathuba wouldn't be around that evening. The students immediately began decorating and finding dates for the big night. Sefako approached Tumelo to once again try and win him back, but Tumelo expressed his disappointment with Sefako, reminding him that he treated him like trash. Sefako apologized and insisted that he had changed before asking Tumelo to be his date for the matric dance. However, Tumelo told him that he needed some time to think about it. Back in their room, Tumelo confided in Mahlatse about his feelings for Sefako, revealing that he wanted to accept his proposal. Mahlatse gave him his blessing and advised him to follow his heart as the best friends embraced. The students then patiently watched Ramathuba stroll to his car and leave before meeting in the hall ahead of the dance. Kaya took to the stage, and the episode ends with him announcing that him and Amo are officially an item and that she'll be his date to the dance as the students erupted in cheers. Episode 44 opens up in the boys' dorms, where an excited Kaya and Sefako got dressed for the matric dance. They reminisced about their time at Olifants before Sefako confided in him about Tumelo's refusal to be his date to the dance. The boys hyped themselves up before making their way to the dance, and on their way, they came across Tumelo, who revealed to Sefako that he had changed his mind and decided to be his date. However, Tumelo made Sefako promise that things would be different if they got back together, as the couple officially reunited. Meanwhile, in the girls' dorms, a desperate Butle confided in Amo about not having a date for the matric dance. Amo suggested that she join her and Kaya, but Butle was reluctant to be a third wheel. The girls got dressed and made their way to the hall, where Tumelo hyped them up before a nervous Mazambane made his move and asked Butle to be his date, which she accepted. Puseleto then officially asked Mahlatse to be her date to the dance, which he eventually accepted. However, Mahlatse would be left breathless after seeing Amo in her dress, complimenting her before the former couple had an awkward exchange, reassuring each other that they were with the right people. The students then arrived at the dance looking sharp and confident, with Pearl also in attendance. The music started playing, the non-alcoholic beers were flowing, and the students were in the mood to celebrate as they expressed their affection for each other and reminisced about their time at Olifants. Sefako later jumped on the stage to make a heartfelt announcement, declaring his love for Tumelo and proudly stating that they were officially an item, as everyone except for Palesa and Alex erupted in cheers and applause. Kaya and Amo then went outside to share a private moment together, and while they were whispering sweet nothings to each other, Ramathuba's car pulled into the school parking lot where another couple was canoodling. They spotted the principal and immediately made a run for it, interrupting Kaya and Amo and informing them that the principal had returned. The episode ends with Amo and Kaya rushing to the hall so they can warn the other students. Episode 45 picks up at the matric dance as Kaya and Amo rushed into the hall to warn the other students. Kaya demanded that they stop the music and announced that Ramathuba was on his way. As Ramathuba came marching down the corridor, the students panicked, with Kaya and Mahlatse scrambling to barricade the doors leading into the hall. Outside the hall, Ramathuba forcefully tried to gain entry and demanded the students open the door. A defiant Kaya insisted that they wouldn't leave and instructed Tsepo, who was DJing, to restart the music. The students responded in cheers and resumed their dance, undeterred by the principal's threats. In response to this defiance, Ramathuba instructed the security guard, Batista, to call the police. The party meanwhile continued, with the students celebrating, but the festivities were short-lived as police officers arrived, joining Ramathuba in his efforts to breach the doors. However, the students told Ramathuba to go to hell and insisted that the party will continue. Pearl then decided to sneak out the back door so she could talk to the principal and try de-escalate the situation. She confronted Ramathuba, questioning why he called the police and accusing him of betraying the students. She insisted that the children had done nothing wrong, but Ramathuba dismissed Pearl's pleas, calling her a traitor and insisting that the student need to be disciplined. Back inside the hall, Amo suggested to Kaya and their friends that it's time to leave, expressing concern that they might get expelled. But Kaya playfully dismissed her worries and insisted that the damage was already done. He then asked Amo to dance, with the rest of the Big Five and their partners joining them on the dance floor for an intimate moment. The Big Five and their friends then once again had a love fest, sharing their affections for one another. However, they were soon brought down to earth when the police suddenly forced their way into the hall, shattering the doors. Chaos erupted as students scattered, screaming and attempting to flee. The police officers, armed with batons and shields, chased and apprehended the students, while Kaya, Amo and their friends struggled against the officers as they tried to escape. The students tried to escape the building, but the situation descended into a full-blown riot. Students were pushed, shoved, and arrested. Pearl tried to help the students get to safety, while Kaya desperately pleaded with the principal, begging him to tell the police to stop and insisting that he would take the blame because he didn't want to see anyone else get hurt. Ramathuba ordered the police to stop, but he was no longer in control as the officers, equipped with tear gas, continued their aggressive actions, which escalated the incident. The Big Five tried to regroup, where Pearl instructed them to find refuge in the dorms, but they were forced apart when Kaya went searching for Butle, who was already in the clutches of one of the police officers. He pleaded with the officer to let her go as a struggle ensued, which led to Kaya and the officer wrestling over his gun. Amidst the chaos, a gunshot rang out before Kaya fell to the ground, bleeding from a wound. A worried Amo rushed to his side, where a devastated Butle was already in tears as their friends gathered around in shock. A montage of flashbacks then began to play of Kaya with Amo and his friends. The episode ends with Kaya laying on the ground, surrounded by his devastated friends as he fades away. Thank you for watching. Feel free to check out some of the other reviews. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is ASR for the love of African filmmaking and storytelling.